So I hear what you're talking about Christianity's positive influence on the world. And I guess my main qualm with Christianity is like the Catholic Church. I don't know if you're Catholic, but like...
I'm not.
You're not? Yeah,
No.
good. Because they're all pedophiles is what's been coming out. Like the 25 million French boys that got, molested. And I just think about like, well, where does God stand in all that? Where was God when those children were being traumatized, It's like, and that's a direct result of Christianity, isn't it?
I don't think so. I think pedophilia has gone on since the beginning of time.
It's an innately human thing, unfortunately.
I think that, if you look at, you're familiar with Albert Camus?
Mm-hmm.
He talked about in his book, The Rebel, how Christ, creates a new idea within history where God is no longer relegated, keeps himself from pain and suffering, but that he actually enters into space-time and endures all the pain and suffering and even death with human beings. And that is a different kind of theodicy, that God is with us in our pain and suffering, and he does not separate himself or keep himself from even experiencing our pain and suffering.
I guess it's like, I've never, because I was, an Episcopalian for a while, I never understood how, like, the death of Jesus could forgive all sins, and like, it could be equivalent. That one death is equivalent to all the human suffering that's ever happened. Like, they don't seem equal to me. I get
that's a good point, and certainly if he was just a man, that doesn't make any sense.
But he's half.
But he identifies himself as God living in a human body, and that way that his death and his his sacrifice has an infinite value.
Infinite value, but if he's part God or spirit or whatever, then isn't he gonna suffer less from death because he can continue living? It's not like a permanent end for him. He rose, right? Like they buried him and then he continued on in heaven.
Well, I think the Christian doctrine is that all people go on, that we are spirit and body.
So in the same way as Jesus, are we not partially spirit and partially... So what's the difference between me and Jesus? That's like kind of a sacrilegious question.
Well, I think we know that we are very limited, right? We are finite creatures.
Right.
And some of us have more ability than others, but certainly, the Christian idea of God is the greatest conceivable being, right? Mm-hmm. That whatever you conceive of as God, if there's something greater, that must be God, right?
Okay.
That God is not just a person out there somewhere, but he is transcendent in that he is love itself.
Yeah.
He is logic. He is these types of things. Mm-hmm. And that in that way he is this infinite being that when he came into space and time, he was trying to make himself more comprehensible to us.
Why do you think he came only to humanity in such an ancient time and he's never come again? What does that mean?
Well, I think, certainly there is the idea in Christianity that he will be coming back, but I think the intention is that the whole purpose of his sacrifice was to come into relationship with human beings in a new way that had not been possible before, and that he would want to come at a time where he thought that was complete, right? As you see Christianity spreading across the world, and even the church, the church that's hiding, in communist China, they're sending missionaries to the Middle East because they have what they call a back to Jerusalem mission, where they, even though they're living in hiding, essentially, that they're sending people to the Middle East to kind of complete this thing. So those are just some ideas, and it is interesting that the majority of the church in China are women, that historically women have found that the equality that comes from the ideas of Christianity are superior to other world views.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting how certain religions treat women. Is it like they're allowed to be spiritual leaders in China? Is that what it is? Versus like,
well,
in other religions, they're not allowed
certainly they are leaders where there are no men to lead, but Christian idea is that men and women are equal. That
right, there's like those two different interpretations. Either they came at the same time, and it was, my name is Eve, so I've thought a lot about like those two first people, and it just, I hate the idea that Eve was created from like his rib. That's such a base part of the body. It's not even like she was created off of his heart or his brain or anything. It was a rib. It was like a basic part of, it's
well,
really
I don't
insulting.
Certainly God doesn't explain exactly what the point of that was.
Yeah.
But he's certainly, the idea of this equality, what was intended is for us, we were designed to love each other and to respect each other. Mm-hmm. And any way that men, women, different racial groups oppress each other is in direct contradiction to the teachings of Christ.
So much oppression has happened under the teachings of, like, all of the shitty stuff in human history has happened because, or not all of it, but like in Western society, it was all like, oh, well, I have divine, power because I'm a king and I can off these people as I please because of God, because God told me. And how can you say...
Well, but look at the 20th century. Look at what happened in atheist societies, in the Russian Revolution and the Chinese Revolution, where you had essentially atheist societies and Marxist materialist societies that actually killed more people than probably many societies that predated it.
I would need to look at the numbers for that, because I think that like the sum, it's tricky because you'd have to do per capita, because like Christianity is so much more pervasive than any, because we're recently secularized society. I would consider society no longer like religious. Like, you are the minority at this point, right? Like, I would especially
maybe
Are you related to the guy that got booed off campus? They all protested him. They chanted.
When was that?
It was like it was the last pretty day. So that's why I'm shocked that you're not getting booed at right now, honestly. So you're lucky, but they were mean to him.
Yeah.
It's as soon as you start saying, "Oh, you're all sinners," like of course people are gonna hate you. But
that's we do things that are wrong, right?
Right.
I mean, you've hurt people, I've hurt people, and God is saying that there needs to be justice for these things. Like, you want justice for the way people have hurt you, but the people you've hurt want justice for the way that you hurt them. And God is saying that, He's saying there's no way for you to go back in time and fix the past and change the things that you've done, right? And that He's giving us a way to deal with the sins of our past, the ways that we've hurt one another. And essentially God's law is love. Any way that we live that's unloving, we're breaking the law. And He considers those laws or those things capital crimes.
Yeah, no, I consider like the lofty ideals of Christianity very good, and I think that they fall in line with most other world religions. Like, everyone's pretty much like, be nice, don't kill people, right? Because that's basic human nature, I think, because like how our brains are set up, we don't want to kill each other, and so there's those basic ideas. And then I feel people...
But of course that is an atheist interpretation of history, right? Because that's maybe a Freudian idea of, if you look at the world as an atheist and say there is no spiritual dimension, then you have to explain everything in a way that excludes, a spirit within them, or the ideas of sin or guilt are just complete manufactured ideas.
I hate the idea that you don't have morals if you're not religious,
Well, I think that God has designed all of us with a conscience.
Right.
And the conscience tells us there are certain things that are wrong.
Is that God in you, or is that the humanity in you?
I think that's part of the design that God, I would say that is part of the spiritual part of the person. Just as your ability to reason or be self-aware or your imagination show evidence that there's some part of you that's not physical, that's independent of the physical world.
But keeping the peace has its physical benefits. Like, not getting murdered is directly a result of not going out and fighting everyone you see. So,
right.
In that way, one could argue that it's not a spiritual aspect at all. It's simply survival.
I'm just saying the conscience itself shows evidence that that there's something beyond your physical body. So the conscience doesn't condemn you for what you physically do, but it condemns you for your intention, right? So if you hurt somebody but you didn't mean to, your conscience doesn't, right? But if you try to hurt somebody and you're not successful, your conscience bothers you. So it gives evidence that it is a metaphysical or spiritual dimension to our cognition.
So do you think that animals experience any sort of spiritual aspect, or are we above them? Is humanity above?
I think that animals do show evidence of a spiritual dimension, that their ability to think and
What about a snail? Something with other nervous system?
I think.
Is there a soul in a snail? I don't know.
No, I wouldn't think so, but I think my main focus is on humanity.
Yeah. Interesting. Really interesting stuff. Thank you so much.